Good evening, everyone. If you're listening live from our area or if you're listening from somewhere else in the world, well, welcome to our monthly daily training seminars. Today, we're going to be talking about food and the colors of foods and how they affect both the nutrition of the food and your body. So I think it's going to be an interesting topic for today. Let's go to the next slide. We'll have a few announcements first before we get started on the topic. Okay, we have the new drinking bottles for helping you drink your water. If you remember last month we talked about water and how it affects your health. This will help you with really doing a good job of keeping up with the water you drink, drinking the best water, and drinking as Dr. Carrie Reams, who we follow in this quite a bit. Dr. Reams recommended drinking your body weight, half your body weight in ounces every day. So that's what I recommend actually. He also recommended drinking about 4 ounces every 30 minutes. And this bottle is made to show you when you drunk 4 ounces. So it's a real help in making your life easier as you drink your water throughout the day. And I use it every day. I have my drinking bottle right here, actually. Now, last month we also talked about magnesium and vitamin D, but that's such an important topic that I wanted to bring it up again. It appears that if you're chronically low in vitamin D and yet you're getting out in the sun, you're taking your vitamin D supplements and you're still low, that may be due to a lack of magnesium. The reason for that is that magnesium is an important part of an enzyme that catalyzes the hydroxylation of vitamin D in the body. If that hydroxylation doesn't happen, you will lose the vitamin D and it will never become active. So it has to be able to make the 125, well, the 25 hydroxy first, and later the 125 hydroxy vitamin D. So magnesium turns out to be an essential element for calcium metabolism and vitamin D metabolism because of its role in making the active form of vitamin D. Now, we also have some other announcements that we'd like to share with you. Our new website and new ordering. We hope you take a look at that. We can make it a lot more easy for you to order any time of the day from anywhere in the world. And we love finding your orders online when we come in the morning. It makes it a lot easier for you and a lot easier for us. Now, our monthly special this month is the vitamin biotin. The B vitamin that a lot of people take for their hair, but it's important for many things. We also have some new products out now. Flax oil is one, and I'll show you the bottles. We have it in quarts and pints, and here they are. So they're both available. You may want to try the pint first and see how you like it. But it's available both ways. It's a little bit less expensive if you buy it by the quart, but not a whole lot. It's pure flax oil from non-GMO, organic flax seeds. It's a virgin oil, unrefined, gives it a little bit more of a bitter taste from the lignans that are in it, but it's a really good product. And it is about 50% roughly alpha-linolenic acid, which is an omega-3 fatty acid. So it can be converted to the EPA and the DHA oils that you get from fish. Now, it's not done as efficiently as I wish it was. So if you're really wanting a good amount of the EPA and DHA, you still need to take those supplements, and usually from fish oil. Our new brain formula called Ageless Brain is also available now. If you remember, in February we talked about brain health, and it's based on that information I gave you that month. So it's available now. You can go online hopefully very soon and order it, or you can call in and order it right now. So that's a new product that we're really anxious for you to try. It's something that we hope will help you have the nutrition you need to protect your brain as you age. And me too, because I'm getting up there as well. Also, you can watch this video, you can watch the brain video, the water video, all on YouTube. We have our own YouTube channel now, and we're anxious for you to take advantage of that and look at it. We've had a lot of interest in that and a lot of people watching it. So I'll be right back. I'm going to get a drink of water real quick, and we'll get started with our presentation for today. Okay, I'm back. Got some good distilled water and ready to go. The title of the talk today is, well, Color Me Beautiful, or Colorful Foods Equal Healthy Foods. And variety really is the spice of life. Now, I've mentioned in every talk so far about this little book that I try to follow, because I use this as a guideline when I'm trying to evaluate what I'm doing right or wrong, and when I'm trying to help other people. We've talked about pure water already, and our first one that we did on brain was a lot about nutrition. We'll get to some of these other topics later, but today is more about good nutrition and eating a healthy diet. There's some about supplements today, but it's more about food today. And we'll go on and start looking at that, because there's a lot of ways of evaluating food. Now, most of what we will talk about today involves two biochemicals, basically, that's in food. One is up there on the top, the flavonoids. If you look at the structure of that, you see those rings, two of them up there hooked together and another one off the side. Well, that's your basic flavonoid structure. And it is just variations of them. There's 5,000 variations of those flavonoids that have been identified in plants. And many, if not most of them, do have bioactivities in the body. It's amazing how many there are, and there's probably more that haven't even been identified yet. The other chemical that we're talking about, or category chemicals, are the carotenoids. There's roughly 750 of those. Now, if you know much about carotenoids, you know that beta carotene can make vitamin A. In fact, if you look at all three of these that are on the slide can make vitamin A, and that's only 3 out of the 750 that can do it to any significant extent. But the top one is beta carotene, and when the body cleaves that in half, it actually has 2 vitamin A molecules. Now, it doesn't do that quite as efficiently, so one molecule of beta carotene doesn't quite make 2 of vitamin A most of the time, because they get modified a little bit in the process. But it's very efficient at making vitamin A. But the thing about beta carotene is you don't get toxic amounts of vitamin A, because your body will shut down the cleavage of that beta carotene if you get more than you need for vitamin A. So that's controlled. That's the safety factor that's built into beta carotene for vitamin A toxicity. So we're far from understanding all of the benefits of these carotenoids and other flavonoids. There's so many of them and so many things that they can do. We know that among carotenoids, lutein and zeaxanthin are very good for your eyes, and we talked about that on our February talk. It's also very good for the brain, they are. So, along with astaxanthin, that's another carotenoid. So there's many benefits to these carotenoids and flavonoids, and we're just scratching the surface of learning about them. Now, the variety of foods that we eat are almost limitless. It's amazing how many things that humans can eat. And if you look at this store in Madagascar, it's just wonderful colors and variety there. Unfortunately, most people limit their food intake to just a few favorites that they eat, relatively speaking. However, there's a whole world of food out there with a large variety of color, texture, and taste. And Korean bibimbap, which I'm going to show you a little bit about making later, is one that incorporates a lot of these different beneficial compounds into one dish and colors. No person needs to be meat and potato persons only, but why not if they want to? Well, there's a good reason. Um, when you limit the variety of foods that you eat, you really do limit the nutrients that you can take in. And not just the type of food, but even foods that are just grown locally. There are many health benefits and environmental benefits to eat locally grown food. Don't get me wrong. Eating fresh local foods right after harvest is ideal for many of your foods. However, for others, such as whole grains, dried beans, etc., it doesn't make as much difference. However, local only puts you at risk for deficiencies or excesses. This map over here shows us selenium in the foods around the United States. In the upper portion up there, you have actually too little and deficiencies in selenium. In the lower portions, in the dots down there, you have possible excesses. Actually, I think I got that backwards. But anyway, you can see that selenium can vary. Only in the middle portion did they have really what they needed. So you can get too much selenium or too little selenium from eating just locally grown foods. So getting a variety of foods from different places gives you a lot of protection nutritionally. Okay. Now, healthy foods comes in all shapes, sizes, and colors, as you can see on here. Lots of different plants have bright colors. Some are more just white. These are foods that we're showing here that are known to have anti-inflammatory benefits, a wide variety of them. Notice that they all are plant foods, and that's pretty much where you get your anti-inflammatory compounds, almost exclusively, with the exception of fish. Especially notice, though, the variety of and intensity of color. Color is a great indicator of beneficial bioactive compounds in foods. Now, green is the first color that comes to mind when we think about healthy foods. Green foods are green because they have a lot of chlorophyll in them. I think you all knew that already. But green foods are typically considered to be the most healthful. And there's good reason for that. The green color is, of course, due to chlorophyll. But they're usually also rich in vitamin K, calcium, and magnesium. Almost all and you think about, your greens when we think about spinach and kale and collards. Very rich in vitamin K, very rich in calcium, very rich in magnesium. So that's a pretty good rule of thumb for green foods. How about chlorophyll itself? I got to wondering about that because I've always kind of seen chlorophyll sold as supplements and scratch my head. What does chlorophyll do in the body? Well, actually it can be beneficial. Chlorophyll is a huge molecule and very similar to heme. And a lot of people make that comparison. If you look at the two, one of the few differences you'll notice is right in the center of the magnesium, of the chlorophyll is magnesium. Right in the center of heme is iron, which is your oxygen transporter in the body. Well, they're huge molecules. People used to think that the magnesium in chlorophyll could be replaced by iron to make heme in the body. But that's not really the case. It gets degraded before it loses its magnesium. But there are some important properties. Lutein and chlorophyll were shown in the study to work together as antioxidants. And remember, lutein is one of the carotenoids. But they work together as antioxidants and work to prevent glutathione peroxidase depletion. Now, you all probably recognize glutathione peroxidase. It's part of the antioxidant enzyme systems in the body. So what does that do? Well, it can do a lot of things. When we talk about antioxidants, they have a reduction reaction. as opposed to oxidative reaction most of the time. So chlorophyll metabolites have also been shown to reduce coenzyme Q10, or the ubiquinone, which is the most common Q10 supplement, to ubiquinol, which is a newer supplement, but is a reduced form of it. Now, why is that important? Well, in the body, they go back and forth constantly. The same molecule does. So it changes from the reduced form to the activated form and back and forth in what's called the electron transport chain. That is where most of your cellular energy is produced. And so that can be very important because the body, when it oxidizes ubiquinol to ubiquinone, it has to be able to be reduced to go back to the ubiquinol form. So it can do that. And that can be a very important thing for energy in the body. It also was shown to prevent cancer in rainbow trout, giving them just a supplement of chlorophyll from extraction. It also worked in rats, and the same group did it in rats also. And it protected them from aflatoxin. They gave both chlorophyll and aflatoxin together, and the chlorophyll actually bound up the aflatoxin and kept it from doing damage to the liver. So very important role of chlorophyll itself in the body. Now, when we talk about green foods, actually they're not just green. And as an illustration of that, we've all seen the green leaves on trees that turn various colors in the fall. Well, what happens is that when the leaves die, the chlorophyll stops being produced by the chloroplasts. So the green goes away. However, what's left are the colors of the flavonoids and carotenoids that give the leaves all those bright, intense colors. Your red, your oranges, your yellows that you see in the fall are flavonoids and carotenoids in those leaves that you couldn't see before because the chlorophyll completely overwhelmed the flavonoids and carotenoids in color, and so they just weren't visible. And until the leaf dies, you never see them, but they're there all along. And green foods, therefore, are also rich in those carotenoids and flavonoids, and rich in indoles and sulforaphanes as well, which are important protective chemicals in the body, ones that we know also from the cruciferous vegetables and from garlic. Well, how about red foods? Well, red foods are especially rich in carotenoids like lycopene. And that's what we really think about when we think about, say, tomatoes. The rich lycopene in tomatoes, which we know can protect against particularly prostate cancer, but other cancers as well. Very important nutrient in the body. And we also know that cooking makes that lycopene more bioavailable. So tomato sauce is actually not a bad food. So don't hesitate to put the spaghetti sauce as long as it doesn't have too much sugar and salt and some of those nasty things in it that we know we shouldn't get too much of. But it's really a very good food, tomato sauce is. And tomato juice, there again, if not too much bad things added, it's a great food. The red foods also have lutein and zeaxanthin in them. These are important pigments that we've talked about for the eyes before. They filter out the blue light in the macula of the eye and prevent macular degeneration. But we also talked about any of these carotenoids that get into the eyes will also get into your brain and protect there as well. We talked about that in February because the ocular blood barrier and the blood-brain barrier, they're very similar. So if it can cross the barrier into the eyes, it can cross the barrier into the brain as well. So there have been studies to show actually that the amount of lutein and zeaxanthin in the eyes really pretty closely mirrors what's in the brain. So we know that we're getting a lot of benefit from our neck up when we eat these foods rich in lutein and zeaxanthin, or take them in a supplement like in our iVite. Red peppers are rich in capsaicinoids. Pronounce that a little bit better. These are great for pain and inflammation. So there again, we've got some real benefits from the red foods. Well, how about the orange and yellow foods? Well, orange and yellow foods tend to be rich in potassium and vitamin A. Great foods for that. Yellow citrus fruits are rich in limonene, which is shown to promote gastric healing and has been shown to have possible anti-cancer effects. Been a lot of studies in recent years on limonene and its benefits. Yellow color citrus fruits also rich in pectins, which are great prebiotics that really help your gut. So if you just look up in the top corner there, you can see all those wonderful yellow fruits that are available. The papayas are wonderful, very rich in the carotenoids. Also rich in an enzyme that will help you with digesting proteins, the papain. So if you're eating it uncooked and fresh, great enzymes there. In the bottom we have the squashes and pumpkins. They have lots of vitamin A in the form of beta carotene. They also have potassium and fiber. And actually, if you really look at the list of nutrients in them, they have just about all your vitamins and minerals, not necessarily in as high of concentration as the potassium and the vitamin A, but they're there in significant amounts. So they're good all around foods. And don't forget about the seeds. It's a shame to throw away those seeds from the pumpkins and the hard squashes, because they are actually very excellent foods. We've probably all had roasted pumpkin seeds. They're wonderful. And they have a lot of zinc and magnesium. So don't forget about those. Also, brown foods. Now, when I'm talking about brown foods, what I'll mention first is brown rice. And it is sort of brown. It's not intensely brown, but it is. And we show a picture of it here. Actually, that's brown rice, or if you look at it really carefully, it's sort of purplish rice, because it has black kernels of rice in it too, which are not really black. They're more of a very dark purple, but they'll stain the rest of the rice to give it a purple color. That's a popular food in Korea, actually. And if you go to a restaurant that specializes in healthy foods, they'll almost always have that purple rice there, and it's wonderful tasting. Another thing you'll notice, you see the little green peas on there? They actually, a lot of times, will have beans cooked in with the rice. In fact, something to think about is when you cook the rice like this, the small beans and peas will cook right with the rice. Just put in a little bit of lentils or split peas, the mung beans or the azuki beans. They'll cook in the same time that the rice does, and they give you a lot of extra nutrition and really balance out their protein well. That's a very complete food when you do that, and it's easy to do. Just put the rice in the rice cooker and some lentils or peas, and you'll have a wonderful meal just by itself. But I'll show you a little bit better than that in a little bit. Now, probably the worst thing to ever happen, the worst nutritional disaster in history, was when they developed white rice and white flour. That just robbed the foods completely of almost all nutritional value. And that's why health conscious people today eat whole wheat bread if they can eat wheat. They also eat brown rice because it has all of these nutrients that are gone. There was a reason why they made the white rice. It wasn't just to make it look prettier. It did prolong its shelf life. When they removed the bran and the germ from the white rice, the oils weren't there to make it go rancid, so they could store it for much longer. However, in those oils were a lot of very important nutrients. The B vitamins were in the bran, the vitamin E was in the germ, and a lot more things. So they really didn't realize it, because they started that back in the 1800s, and they didn't realize what they had done. But In Asia, it was a total disaster. The disease beriberi, which literally means I can't, um, became a very serious epidemic, and no one knew what the cause was uh, in Asia. They really thought for a long time that it was an infectious disease, and they were looking for some kind of bacteria or something like that that was transmitting it from person to person. But eventually, as they studied more and more, they realized it wasn't transmissible between people that much. And finally, they figured out that it was somehow being caused by the diet. And finally, by about 1920, they discovered that by adding rice bran to the diet, that it could be treated and prevented. So later it was discovered that there was a deficiency of thiamine caused by eating white rice. Because remember, these are people whose staple food is rice. That was a major portion of their diet. And they just weren't getting the thiamine. And that really shut down their energy production. And that's why they had this disease that caused them to be very low energy, like a super duper chronic fatigue syndrome. And people are now beginning to look at, and it's not really nailed down closely, that maybe even if you don't have clinical beriberi, maybe if you're very low in energy, it could be a thiamine deficiency. So people are starting to look at that to see if maybe there's a subclinical thiamine deficiency that causes low energy. Not sure about that yet, actually, but there is some new research just getting started on that. So keep your eyes and ears open about that. It may turn out to be. You know, another brown food that we all are familiar with, and most of us love, is chocolate. Very brown, intensely brown food in this case. However, chocolate does have a lot of beneficial compounds in it. But, you know, we know that, eating chocolate with all that sugar, with all the, fat added to it is problematic. However, dark chocolate, and I'm quoting a research study here that you can look up. It's actually what you call a review article. Dark chocolate contains many biologically active components such as catechins, procyanogens, and theobromines from cocoa, together with added sucrose and lipids, which are not so good. All of those can either directly or indirectly affect the cardiovascular system by multiple mechanisms. So depending on what we have, can really have a profound effect on our heart. But if you eat the very dark chocolates, I would say 75% cocoa chocolates. If you get 75 to 80%, it's fairly bitter, but slightly sweet, but not like eating a regular candy bar by any means. And it's pretty good. So that's really not a bad thing to eat. And you get a lot of beneficial polyphenols from it, the flavonoids. Okay. Well, what about white foods? We're talking about all these rich colors, but even white foods have some nice benefits to them. Apples are red on the outside, but if you get inside of them, they're mostly white. And a lot of people peel it anyway. But still, that doesn't mean that all the nutritional value is gone. I like to eat the peels myself. But quercetin is one of the most important bioflavonoids, and you can find quercetin in that white part. It helps all kinds of inflammation. It's a wonderful thing. We put it in several of our products as well. But it's very good for inflammation. White food also contains pectin, which we mentioned before. It's very rich in that. All your white foods that I can think of are, apples are rich in that, pears are rich in pectin, your yellow foods are too, actually, your citruses. Garlic and onions are rich in pectin. So you get a lot of good things from white foods as well. Probably everybody's favorite of the colorful foods are the blue, purple, and black foods. Usually they're not really black. Blackberries are, I think, a really intense dark purple, but still they look pretty black. But this is my favorite category because I love these berries. This category has resveratrol in it, anthocyanins, and many other polyphenolic compounds that are hugely beneficial. This has the compounds that are found in the daily OPC 85 grapeseed pine bark extract. If you're familiar with it, this is a really potent antioxidant formula and protective formula, as well as being anti-inflammatory. It is important to consider that the polyphenols are found, though, mostly in the seeds and skins of these fruits. So that's where you really do need to get that whole fruit to get the most benefit of it. Now the resveratrol, when they make wine, a lot of that will come out of the skin where it is into the wine, for instance. But you still leave a lot of it in the skins of the grapes. The research shows that this category is probably the most potent antioxidant and anti-inflammatory and anti-cancer foods of all the foods that we've mentioned, however. And I like to consume these, not besides just eating them. I like smoothies made with these kind of berries. You can use the whole fruit. That's a great way to do it. Juices of these fruits, I'm not real big on juices anymore. That sounds bad for a health person, but juices really a lot of times concentrate the sugars and take out in the pulp a lot of very beneficial compounds. So I like to make smoothies by taking the whole fruit, mix some nut milk in it. Macadamia milk is available now. I love that. So is cashew milk and almond milk. Put some of these milks in a little bit to make sure it blends up. Maybe a banana to help sweeten it a little bit more if your berries are a bit sour. You get a wonderful thing to drink. If you can't get the fresh berries, especially during the winter or off season, I know I can find at Sam's Club, where I buy them, frozen mixes of blackberries, raspberries, and blueberries, and they have no sugar added. And they're wonderful. They make a really nice smoothie. And you may be able to do that too, wherever you live. One hint, though, about this. A lot of people don't like to take their capsules and tablets for whatever reason. They just don't like swallowing them. It doesn't bother me, but there are people that don't. I learned a little trick from Jack LaLanne, who was a real influential health and fitness promotion person in the USA. And I think anybody in this country would recognize the name. Maybe people in other countries do too. But he suggested taking your supplements, dump them in the blender with your smoothie, and grind them up and drink them. And there's no reason not to, with a few exceptions. You don't want to do something that's sustained release, because that will no longer be sustained release, obviously, if you grind it up in the blender. For instance, our Colonade, the prebiotic formula we have, it's made in a delayed release capsule that will get it past the stomach acid and keep that bacteria alive longer. Well, if you put that in the blender, you're going to defeat that purpose. So that's not a good idea for that particular product. In fact, with Colonade, that delayed release makes it a lot more potent than a standard probiotic that is not delayed release, because most of the bacteria will be killed in the stomach by the stomach acid. So this gives you a lot more potency with a smaller amount of bacteria to have it delayed release, so it doesn't get released until it gets into the small intestine, which is not acidic. So very good. Well, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about colorful actual food that you can make. And you'll notice on the left part of that picture, all those beans. They come in all kinds of different colors and things. If you really want an assortment of lentils and different colors, go to an Indian food store. Not American Indian, Indian from India. They really have a lot of them. This is from a health food store we go to in the Charlotte area, and it has a lot of different lentils, beans, peas, different colors. That gives you all kinds of variety to your food. There again, also the rice bowl that we showed you earlier. Now, bibimbap is a Korean food that I'm really a big fan of. And usually it's just written as one word, but I put the hyphens in, bibimbap, so you could see more easily how to say it. And that just means mixed rice. Bap is the Korean word for rice, and bibim means it's mixed with stuff. So it's pretty simple, but it's a wonderful food that is very popular in Korea, and one of their signature foods, really. And it really combines a lot of the foods that we're talking about today, and there's endless combinations of bibimbap. But we'll show you a little bit more about it. Go to the next slide, and we will see a picture of it that looks a lot better than what I'll probably make today for you. But it's a beautiful food, and you almost feel bad when you eat it because you have to stir it all up, and then it's not so pretty anymore, but it tastes wonderful. But you start with a bit of rice, and I like that purple rice that we talked about because it's got those anthocyanins in them, and also the brown rice with it that has all the wonderful antioxidant and anti-inflammatory benefits. And you can look at this and you can see that purple rice there. Well, you start by adding an egg to it and put it right in the middle, just like in that picture. And then we can start adding, in this case, more purple. Here we have purple cabbage. Wonderful food. Now, they always put spinach in this that I've seen. Spinach is popular greens in Korea. But in this case, I have to be different. So this is actually a mixed greens that includes spinach and other greens. So we'll put that in there with it too. So there we go. We're getting all this beautiful color. Carrots, one of the more common ingredients also. So we'll get a good dose of carrots here. Now I'm going to put some onion in here. Koreans like to eat a lot of garlic and onions. And they're really good for you too. Okay, and now most Koreans would put beef in there, or there's just endless varieties of bibimbap, but that's the most common. Of course, I'm vegetarian, so I don't. What I've got is tofu that's cooked with soy sauce. Organic tofu, of course, non-GMO, and soy sauce made from organic soybeans as well. So there you go. And here's a wonderful food. Now what you do if you're in Korea, the gochujang. That's a fermented red pepper paste. And you take and add some of that according to how hot you like it. And believe me, it can get pretty hot. But I would probably take, about that much and add to it. And then if it wasn't hot enough, I'd add a little more later. And then just take a spoon and stir it and stir it and stir it till it's all mixed together. And you have a wonderful, wonderful food there. And it has the fermented gochujang there too, which can give you some good probiotics. So here we see today what I consider one of the healthiest foods that you can eat. And you don't have to really follow my recipe. You can do it any way you want to. The Koreans have endless numbers of different bibimbaps. And some of them are vegetarian like I would eat. Some of them have meat. Some of them have fish, but a lot of different varieties. They always contain a lot of vegetables though. Koreans really do. Their traditional diet is a rice and vegetable diet with just a little bit of meat added almost as a seasoning. Now, in the modern times, they're eating more meat than they used to, but that's more of the traditional diet, mostly rice and vegetables. Well, as we finish up today, we'll go to our last slide and just say, I recommend that you eat a wide variety of colors, flavors, and textures from all over the world. And the main thing is to have fun eating healthy foods. That will be something that will carry you through to a nice long life, just like the Asians have, I hope. And thank you for being with us today. I've enjoyed it. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you'll try making bibimbap. If you think you can't remember how to do it, go online and search bibimbap. It's all over the internet. It's easy to find recipes, although you don't really need a recipe. You can just put whatever you want to, almost there. Just keep it healthy. And thanks for joining us. Goodbye.